if there are any negotiations going whatsoever. We are now joined by Dempsey, the Senior Assistant General Secretary of the RMT Union. Now, Dempsey, this now has been running for more than a year. People seem to have got used to the disruption. Are you worried that your strikes might be losing some impact?
No, I think the public is swinging in behind the union's campaign, as we've seen almost 500,000 people have responded to the public consultation on the government's modernisation programme. The centrepiece of that is the closure of ticket offices across the country. And what we see is passengers and the public are opposed to the government's vision of what the railway should look like and are supportive of ours. And this is down to whether we have a de-staffed and dehumanised railway network or whether we have one that's running the interests of passengers and the people here rather than for the profits of private companies. So what we've seen is the public responding to our campaign and getting behind it. But the unfortunate circumstances are we haven't had any formal negotiations with our counterparts in industry since mid-April. We've written to the RDG this morning setting out a clear pathway to find an outcome to this dispute. But it seems that the government are not going to give sign-off to our industry partners to come and sit at the table and negotiate a settlement with us.
So if that doesn't happen, if there's no negotiations planned at all table, then how does this dispute move forward? Where do we go on from here?
Well, that's a really good question, and it's one I think that needs to be asked of the Department for Transport, because ultimately they are responsible for the negotiating mandate and the negotiating instructions for industry. We've written to them this morning. We've set out a clear pathway how we can get to an outcome here for everybody. We're hoping for a positive response, but so far from what we're picking up in the press, it seems lukewarm, and I suspect this is again down to the government refusing to sign a mandate to allow the employers to negotiate with us.
Now, part of the pathway in the letter that your boss, Mick Lynch, sent to the train companies this morning is a request for no compulsory redundancies. But we already know that those redundancies have been planned as part of the pay offer, and the government is saying that railways are losing £10 million a day, and then there's been a financial impact of COVID, and people simply don't use the rail network the way they used to. So isn't it time for your union to also compromise?
Well, what the employers say to us is that the jobs that they want to take out of the industry don't require compulsory redundancies. What we're saying is that people who need to leave the industry should do so on a voluntary basis with severance. We're not saying that nobody is allowed to leave the railway industry. There's lots of vacancies right now, which is why you see an impact when there's overtime bans and so on and so forth. So we can have a negotiation that's based on the principle of no compulsory redundancies. The industry says that there aren't going to be compulsory redundancies. We've heard government ministers say that they don't want to have compulsory redundancies in this. So we don't understand why they don't just write that down in a commitment, in a document that will allow us to move forward. But ultimately what we want to wait for is the outcome of the public consultation. We've seen how opposed passengers and the public are to the government plans. So what we think is there needs to be a bit of a ceasefire until December, until the outcome of those consultations are known, and how the government's going to respond to that public consultation. Because if they actually listen to what people are telling them, then a lot of these ticket offices they're planning to close will stay open, which will mean far less jobs need to be taken out of the industry than originally planned.